I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. It's good to have you and hear more about W.R.K.S games. You're a little bit new to Expo, so it's great to be able to share this with everybody.
We are indeed new. In fact, the first time, as new as one can possibly be. And we were actually planning on showing up in person with a physical booth, but then of course stuff happened in the world, and here we are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, but you've still chosen to be associate sponsors of the virtual Expo, which is wonderful, and thank you making this possible. So tell us a little bit about W.R.K.S, because you're not just tabletop games, are you?
No, we're not. W.R.K.S is pronounced works. And the company actually started out being called GameWorks, and then it turned out there was already a GameWorks in the US. So I then started looking around at what other industries had done with the word works, and they had kind of abbreviated it to W.R.K.S and was pronouncing it works. So then I started calling it GameWorks, and then I realized that W.R.K.S are actually my initials. So I put it in the front, and it then became Works Games.
Excellent.
So Works Games it is. And yes, we are actually a multifaceted, oh, hello there, Cosmos in the chat. We are a multifaceted game developer. So I think at the core, when I describe the company to staff and to people we run into, I call us a universe building company, because we're actually in the business of creating game lore. And we have the Jordenheim universe, which was our first universe. And it's a Viking-inspired, Scandinavian mythology-inspired one. I am actually Swedish by naturalization. I lived in Sweden for many years. And I also have been a mythology buff for a very long time. And I felt that there was not enough games exploring that particular space in a good way, because it's a very rich lore universe. So what we did was we took Scandinavian mythology and Scandinavian history, fused it together, and created our own layer on top of it. The way we do magic and myth is new to Scandinavian lore, but there's a lot of recognizable stuff in there. So we started out by creating the universe, and inside that universe, we create PC games, console games, tabletop games, board games, and non-interactive content like videos, short stories, comics, etc. So wonderful. A universe is a rich pool of content generation for us.
So there's this huge verisimilitude, a belief in a wider world, even if you're only in a little part of it, and a need to look at more.
And you can find this a lot with game companies who are building content universes, but they tend to build the game first, wait for it to get popular, and then try to retrofit lore into it, which I've never felt really gets there. So we actually decided to start out initially by going, let's assume the games will do well, and start out what is the story we want to tell, what's the world we want to tell. And even in the game development world, we're a really, really unusual video game developer. We do not do anything the way normal game developers do it. The processes are actually quite similar to how movies get created. So a game does not start with a game design plan. We start with a script. It's like, what is the story we want to tell? And then we write the script. And then I will then look at the script and go, what game am I going to create that's going to allow us to tell this story in the best possible way? And that's how the game evolves, which is the opposite of how every game developer in the world does it.
That's absolutely tremendous.
And because I have my roots are in tabletop gaming, because the first company I had 20 years ago was actually one of the first ebook publishers in the world in tabletop gaming. So I didn't want to let that go either. And coincidentally, the tabletop industry has exploded in the last few years.
Yes.
So that was a great excuse to start slapping every universe we create into a tabletop game as well. So the way the Jordenheim RPG happened is actually I created a lot of the lore first. And we had a writer in the early days whose name was Thor. His real name was Thor. And he wrote a lot of the story content together with me. And then Dan, who is the writer of the actual rulebook for Jordenheim, I've known Dan since the Sylvan Publishing days from 20 years ago. And he's evolved his own rule set called the Eldritch rule set that is was like a generic rule set similar to the open source version of D&D.
Yes.
Designed to create a fluid gaming experience. We wanted to have a rule set that didn't get bogged down in rules, because if you take Dungeons and Dragons, for example, one of the big issues is that combat is enormously complicated. So if you have a game master that's running a fluid storytelling campaign and you start hitting a large combat sequence, it can slow everything down dramatically. And something that Eldritch does very well is that it allows people who want complex rules to head down that route. And for those who just want a quick gaming experience, you can head down that route. And this is something that's in the ethos of all the games that we do. It has to be accessible to newbies and enough depth for the hardcore gamer.
So you can tailor that experience depending on who you have, who you're playing with.
Indeed. So and I would say we came 90% of the way there for Jordenheim. I'm happy with this first release. I think we need one more iteration down the line before we're all the way there. But it's been thoroughly play tested. People are happy with it. Most of the core requirements have been met, so it was ready for a commercial release. And I think we can't do the next phase without getting player feedback, because there's only so much structured testing you can do.
Yes, very much so.
I'm looking forward to hearing from the general public what we need to improve next.
That sounds amazing. So if someone wants to get copies of your game, what formats have you got? Where can they get this from? And
it's digital only right now. So you can get it off our website at jordanheim.com. We have a store there that allows for a digital download right away. We are launching our own store in the next couple of months, and you'll be able to get it from our own store on W.R.K.S games from next month onwards. And we will also have a print-on-demand version coming out towards the end of the year, because this is a high production value title. We created it for print. And cool. Then we'll see a little bit next year what happens. We're tentatively exploring with publishers whether we want to have a distribution deal to put it in stores. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm certainly expecting the majority of our sales to come through digital channels. And it's available for purchase now off the jordanheim.com site.
That's amazing.
Would you like us to show the viewers some of the amazing artwork we've got from your book here? Let's have a look. So we're starting here with one that I think is called the Battle. There's some amazing magic going on in the middle of that, and then we're having a look at the castle, a remote castle in the mountains.
Yep. So the battle scene is actually the wraparound front and back cover. That's done by our two German artists, Florian Herold and Dominic Darrow, who collaborated on that piece. Florian is our environmental artist, and Dominic is our character artist. And they do all the artwork in the book. And in the world of Jordenheim, we've mimicked some of the things you recognize. So Jordenheim is Scandinavia, and it's been divided up into Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland, but they're not recognizable compared to what things are today. And that castle is from the group under Norge, which is what Norway is today. Mm-hmm. And they're mostly resembling high elves from the Lord of the Rings sort of era. They're quite closed off. They're quite full of themselves. They like to guard their borders. And that castle is actually the main capital city that is lying on the borderline between Norway and Sweden, and everybody who enters the Norway area must come through there.
That's tremendous.
So
absolutely
remote.
Tremendous. So you've already got like a setup just geographically, which will spawn a whole pile of stories, even if you haven't got anything specific. That's amazing.
Yeah, we have endless stories to tell in this space. Endless stories, and this is only one universe so far.
And we can take a moment to have a look at that map of Jordenheim. Let me see if I can.
Oh yes, the map is beautiful. So and did you say it was a hand-drawn, Cos?
Yeah, this is a hand-drawn map. This is done by Dominic, who's our character artist, who decided to flex his mapping muscles on this one.
Yeah.
So it's a completely hand-drawn map, and that is the world of Jordenheim, and it exists in a larger world that we actually haven't explored too far. We just call it Christendom, because there is this period of Jordenheim's history that we're poking around in is similar to that period in Viking history when the Christian religion started to enter into the Nordic realms and started to challenge the pagan religions. So we have a religion in the outer world called Christendom, spelled with a K.
Yep.
And that part of the world is not talked about in the game at all. We'll explore that in future books, but for the moment, it's very much about the Jordenheim area itself.
That's very cool. So you've got this kind of near Earth historical thing, but definitely with huge elements of fantasy and things as part of that.
Yeah,
that's very, very cool. What's your favorite part of the world? Would you say, so what's your favorite part of the world? What's your favorite shtick for your role playing system?
The way we do magic is different from most places. So the magic does exist. But there's a thing called the Shroud, and way back in the day, in the old parts of the history of Jordenheim, there was no difference between human culture and mythology. They mixed. They existed in the same space, and
Yeah.
man and myth were right next to each other. Gods walked the land. It was a normal thing. And then as civilization started to grow and mankind started to get a sense of itself and bring its own science, technology, and ideas, it pushed back magic. And pushed to, as the belief in the gods started to lessen, the power of the gods lessened. And therefore, creatures of myth and legend started to be more and more fearful of man, and then started creating an alternate plane of existence, which exists like a veneer on top of the actual world. So there's no particular place. You can enter it or exit it based on actions or events. But for the most part, magic is drawn from the gods. And in the Jordan culture, women are the channel of the godly energy. The witch is the balancing act between man and gods and magic, and provides an ecological balancing act. And from there stems a lot of different concepts. But that has mutated. So magic is very interesting. You can be a traditional magic user, like a witch that pulls power from the gods and runs around the place shooting bolts of fire if you want to.
Right.
You can be a rune caster who doesn't cast any spells but imbues things with magic. So you can pull power from the gods and imbue a weapon with power, imbue a lock with a magical seal. Or if you're being role-playingly properly adventurous, you can role-play as a male character who has been born with the magical touch. Male characters cannot control the magic. They're called the god touch. They're wild magic users. They have very little control over what's going on and can just as easily wipe out themselves and their party on any given moment, as opposed to, wiping out the enemy.
That's
and
amazing.
It has like a mechanic similar to Cthulhu, that the longer it goes, the more it turns you into a mad person.
Yes.
So there's a great deal of role playing that can be done in the god touch part. There's a lot of interesting little layers to the magic that's been introduced, because it's not really a high magic game. It's really more Lord of the Rings level, where magic is there, it's powerful, but you don't walk around the place and suddenly see fireballs shooting from the side from someone. It's a very unusual occurrence.
Yes. That's very good. We've just had a comment in the chat saying that the descent into madness and then exploding and destroying your party sounds like their role-playing group. So well done on that one. Maybe this game is for you from that point of view.
Yeah, and we've also taken these rules and the Jordenheim lore into the Blood Bond PC game as well. So one of the main features we had with the PC title, the first one, is introduce the world to people by playing the game. And you get to meet these concepts. You play as a heroine that's going through a personal story, but around you the world is evolving, and you get to meet the mad wizards. You get to meet the religious conflicts. You get to have the adventure and experience the world that way. So
that's absolutely tremendous. Very, very much so. That's really, really good. So tell us a little bit about, so you're saying that you had a company back in the day, sort of 20 years ago as well, is that right?
It was indeed. It was my first adventure in the entrepreneurial world. It was a company called Sylvan Publishing, which started out as a community called Sylvan, because at the time I was kind of just entering my 20s. And the internet had kicked off and online communities were happening. But we found that most of the communities were not for adult gamers. They were mostly children and younger gamers. But there was nowhere that you could have like a really high quality community for adult gamers who are in their mid to late 20s and above. So we started out creating, and I was a web designer at the time, so I just did it and created a community. It started to take off completely out of the blue, and because it turned out that other people had noticed this lapse and got drawn into it because we were the only ones out there doing it. And this community grew into a large, vibrant community of daily interaction surrounding role-playing. And there were a bunch of dedicated people in that community who started helping me moderate it. And after a while, we thought, I guess we could technically build games now because we have all the talent we need right here. And at the time, the ebook industry was kind of not happening. It was basically just people taking their physical books, ripping out all the artwork, turning it into a 10-cent version of a PDF and going, here's an ebook, which it's not really a role-playing game product unless you've got the great artwork and unless you've got the ability to kind of leaf through it and go, and be immersed in a world. And nobody believed in high production value PDFs except for us. And I remember showing up at an event introducing the company. Everybody thought I'd gone completely bonkers when I said I'd get PDFs at the same production value as actual books. and sell them for $29.99. This was in 2008.
Yeah.
And people thought I'd gone completely mad. And they stopped calling us a startup and just kept referring to us as the upstarts over there who think we're crazy. But it worked. It did work.
And you see so many things are in PDF format now. Even if you get a hard copy, you ask for that. It's
remember that Wizards of the Coast refused to sell their products in PDF until we proved the fact that a high production value PDF would work. Drive-through RPG showed up in the world at the same time.
Yes.
It was all of that entire spiel. And actually, there's another innovation that's necessary now on ebook sales. So we are actually launching the store, as I said, the W.R.K.S store next month. And originally I was planning on putting our own products there.
Yep.
But then as I went back and looked at the industry and looked at drive-through and the value they provide, they were enormously pivotal back in the day. But what has naturally happened over time is that they kind of monopolized the industry. And now everybody who wants to sell an ebook PDF has got to give up 30% of their fee to drive-through in order to be on the store, which is kind of the only place to sell it.
Yeah.
It is not possible for an independent small-scale RPG to give up 30% and still have a living wage. So we decided to extend the store to everybody else. So we're actually now going to actively compete as a e-retailer for PDF games starting next month. And we're starting out with a small selection of publishers who are launching with us, and then I'll eventually open it to everyone. We're only taking £1 per download from the publisher, and they set their own price points and keep the rest.
That's tremendous. That's very, very good. It also helps much more from the sharing and things. So I imagine that given the pandemic and stuff, having an online ability to just get people to download your game and have everything there has been a tremendous asset.
Yes, it's very good. We were remote from the beginning, and I have always been a believer of remote companies. And I also don't want to be limited to just hiring people in the UK, because there's a great deal of great talent everywhere in the world. And W.R.K.S Games is now about 15 people on the regular payroll, and only 3 of us are in the UK.
That's tremendous.
Found an enormous amount of talent everywhere, as far away as South Africa. I mean, Dan is in the Midwest of the United States. We have our back-end development team is in Africa. Our artists are in Germany. Our 3D artist is in Russia. We're all over the world.
That's absolutely extraordinary. So that's a good bit of coordination as well, being able to bring everyone together in that fashion. That's wicked. So people
well suited for that.
Yes. So if everyone wants to get into Jordenheim and to know more about it, we're looking at your store, and you've got Facebook pages and social media as well. Is that right?
That is correct. We are represented on all the social media, and we do have our Jordenheim.com page is a good starting point for immersing into the lore. There's a lot of free content there that you can preview before actually going around to buying the book. And then if you're into PC games, we are launching the PC game is launched already, but we're launching in chapters, so it'll be fully complete by around about October. But the best way to get like a really in-depth lore activity around the game is to go for the tabletop game, because we have 140 pages in the core rulebook. There's no lack of lore and rules to be played around with there.
Fantastic. So what do you need to run the game? Is it multiple dice and things? How many players?
Yeah, so you need your usual complement of polyhedral dice. And other than that, all you need is the core rulebook, a pen and paper, and then some additional supplemental material like the character sheet. Probably need the world map to get an understanding of the geography. All of those are provided as part of the core rulebook. In fact, the additional stuff is provided for free that you can download off the site. And then over the next few months, we're going to be rolling out on our YouTube channel quick start guides for people who are new to the game, how to get up and running quickly as a GM, how to run your first game instance. The core rulebook contains 2 appendices for people who are new to running the game, to just the steps you need to take to get a game up and running as fast as possible, and how to introduce it to your team. And so we've tried to provide as much hand-holding as possible for people who are picking it up for the very first time.
That's really wonderful. That's very wonderful. So will you be having demos or tasters or things like this at Virtually Expo as well, if people want to actually talk to you or any of the guys as to what's happening as part of your stand?
Yep, indeed we are. So Dan is going to be personally running 2 games on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. And people are welcome to sign up, and we'll run them on Roll20. And our Discord is open for anybody who wants to come and talk directly to us. And there'll be a link to the Discord on the Virtual Expo as well. and links to all of our social media that are monitored all the time. So there are multiple ways to engage.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. So if you have a keen GM and they are starting people out for the first time, it sounds like Jordenheim would actually be a really good way of gaining access to an entire world for people who don't necessarily know about role playing as well, which is also good.
Indeed. Yeah, there's plenty of storytelling material there to get started. It's a good. We designed it specifically for people who are new to tabletop role playing.
That's wonderful.
So it's a good place to begin if you're into the fantasy style of role playing, of course.
So you're saying that this is the first universe you're doing. Do you have plans for other universes and things bringing into the fall?
We actually have the first 3 universes are planned, and the first 3 games in each universe are also loosely planned. I'm not going to be announcing those just yet because we haven't publicly announced them, the new ones.
Sure. No, absolutely.
No scoops today.
The announcements, the first of those is actually coming close to Christmas.
Very cool.
The next universe is another doozy of a universe that I've been meaning to write stories about for quite some time. So we always try to fuse a degree of human history into the mythology that we create. So this is another lore avenue or vertical that has an enormously rich mythology that we don't hear a lot about in the Western world. There's a lot of attraction from a very esoteric sort of, oh my goodness, it's in Asia over there kind of thing, but nobody really knows enough, and it's just an enormously in-depth amount of lore. So we're going to pull that into a universe and start rolling out computer games and tabletop games in that as well. And actually the Jordenheim core rulebook was planned as 3 books. So this is the core rulebook is the first one. Next year, we're going to be publishing something called the Worldbook, which is a 96-page tome of just lore. Wow. It's the culture, the history, the lands, the everything for GMs who really want to deep dive into it. And the third book is actually similar to a fusion between the Monster Compendium and the Spell Compendium. It's essentially a list of quick startable tools that you can just use if you can't be bothered to do everything from scratch. So you'll find a broad selection of monsters, associated stats, items, spells, ready to roll and just throw into any game you want.
This all sounds absolutely amazing. I think I'm blown away by the art. I really like that Yeti fighting the Viking-looking gent in that. Yep. That looks pretty cool. You're going to be running some events, some games at Virtually Expo, and people will be able to find out more about those on your exhibitor stand, and also checking you out on your Facebook, Twitter. You're launching a YouTube as well soon, so you're going to be all over the internet with this too. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Kos. It's
Thank you for having me.
Oh, there's one tiny thing. Don't forget to go and talk to W.R.K.S, not W.R.K.S, but W.R.K.S, because there might be a badge associated. Go along and see what they've got. That kind of thing.
Yes, the secret badges. We'll be talking maybe a little bit more about those in a few moments. But it has been a delight to have you on the Twitch stream today, Kos. Thank you for taking some time.
Thank you very much.
Toodles. Thanks all. Until next time.
Definitely. All right.
Bye-bye.